Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Kiana Canada. Welcome back to Kiana's show. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the opportunity to reach into YouTube's repository, not literally, right? Figuratively. And basically what I did was just searched for transnational repression and searched through multiple videos, took notes, and notated the points that stood out to me, and that's what we're going to discuss this evening. As you can see, the lights are back on, and that is because I sent my camera down the street. Someone came and picked up my camera. They took the malware off of my camera, and now we're back in business. So hopefully there's no more persons hacking into my devices, such as my camera, and we can hold these discussions. So first, I want to start off with the first webinar, which was introducing the Transnational Repression Project, a discussion of sub-concepts in data. And this was taken in 2025. It was convened in 2025. And the persons that convened was Rebecca Cordell, Dana Moss, Christian Davenport, Yusuf Munier. And there was something very important that Christian Davenport stated. He said that the West is going after people considered to be a threat. Now, when we consider the transnational repression literature, especially these broad discussions about transnational repression, there are multiple countries that come up consistently, such as those within Asia, sometimes those mainly it's Asian countries that come up in the literature regarding transnational repression. And then of an African country, Egypt comes up. But I acknowledge, just as Christian Davenport did, is that the West can go after persons as well, such as when the United States, the Republic of Ireland, and now Northern Ireland is actively putting me through transnational repression. And Christian Davenport's background and academic focus is primarily on political repression, which of course intersects with transnational repression. And so I thought that that was interesting that finally we had someone acknowledge that it's not just Asia, but it is also the West that is a perpetrator of transnational repression. Munier stated that, and this is what I think is very important, and this is something I probably should have saved toward the end, but I think it's important to say it much sooner, is that he stated that limiting our observations to specific perpetrators, victims, that limits our understanding of the phenomenon itself. And so, ladies and gentlemen, when I go to human rights institutions such as the Northern Ireland Human Rights Commission or Amnesty International, or even at my university, and I express that I'm being put through transnational repression, even when I've spoken to politicians in the Republic of Ireland as well as here in Northern Ireland, many people are dumbfounded by the very fact that that is taking place on their soil. And if not that, I think they feign that they don't understand exactly what transnational repression is when they do know. And I think that that's deeply disappointing to me. Another thing that Munier stated was that non-authoritarians can persecute citizens and non-citizens. And that was illuminating because, again, we have been conditioned, indoctrinated, and taught that it is the global South, the states within the global South, or the Middle East or Central Asia that are perpetrators of transnational repression, and only these states, and that the global North are states that are the saviors and that they are the protectors. And if that were the case, and I'm not saying that is not always that is, my argument is that is not always the case, right? Or excuse me, my argument is that it's not always the case that the global North is the savior. Sometimes it's the case that the global North is not the savior or the protector and is the perpetrator or the persecutor, as, of course, in my case. And I think the reason as to why there's been so much reluctance to acknowledge my being a victim of transnational repression substantially owes to the very fact, ladies and gentlemen, that I am a Black American, if you haven't noticed. I'm a Black American, and my perpetrator / perpetrators are white. And there is this, this assumption that people within the dominant society, they don't carry out these acts. But of course, as social media is starting to grow and more people are getting access to independent news sources, and the more that becomes available to us, we begin to, I think that we begin to understand quite clearly that the global South is not alone when it comes to these acts of repression. Now, people often say, well, why is it you? Kiana, why are they attacking you? And I think Dana Moss sums it up, clearly. She says, that immigrants, refugees, and exiles, and human rights defenders are the primary victims of transnational repression. And Dana Moss, she also said that perpetrating states, they view independent civil action as a threat to them. And I agree. I think filing an asylum claim is an independent civil action. Protesting is an independent civil action. Not only protesting, but I would even argue that speaking about this online, as I'm doing now, is an independent civil action. So another important statement that Dana Moss made was that scholars don't work from one typology or a repertoire. And I think that that's what we need to, what's so important here is that Northern Ireland scholars, the Republic of Ireland, the authorities in Northern Ireland, the Human Rights Organization in Northern Ireland, they don't understand that, and this was made very clear in the webinars that I watch that perpetrators of transnational repression, they don't rely on one act or one typology or modality or action to attack a person. It's all across the board. And I think that that's what makes it difficult to recognize that we are being put through transnational repression. I think that that's what makes it very difficult to, that's what makes it very difficult for some people to understand when a person is being put through transnational repression, because it's really so sporadic. Another point that Dana Moss made was about reputational harm, such as sexualized allegations against women. And as you know, as a victim of transnational repression, I've had cyber hackers, male intelligence officers hacking into my social media accounts and flooding them with sexualized images. I reported that to the police service of Northern Ireland. And I think I talk about this in a few episodes back, where the police service of Northern Ireland told me to take down my social media. I didn't do that at the time, but then I did take down the X platform, because there was just too much of that on that platform. But this is an element, I believe, of that indicates a person such as myself is being put through transnational repression. Not always. This can be just ordinary cyber harassment, but I think that my personal situation satisfies multiple elements. Again, some may argue, well, Kiana, you've been protesting, you've been uploading videos, but Dana Moss makes clear, and the scholars make clear, that transnational repression, it does not always, or it does not blanketly prevent activism. You may be able to go out and assemble and to protest on particular issues, or to, such as what I'm doing, is uploading videos to YouTube, but that does not mean that it's going to be seen by a wide audience, or people are going to acknowledge it, right? And I want to move to what Christian Davenport stated. He said that differential national identities are going to play out in distinct ways in different locations. And I think that when people hear my story about transnational repression, they're comparing it to an Islamic story, or an Asian story, or a Turkish story. These are, of course, the primary ethnicities and groups that are going through transnational repression that they've researched. But national identities are going to play out in distinct ways in different locations. So as a Black American, I may be put through transnational repression for speaking out against white supremacy, but a white American may not be put through transnational repression if they are speaking out against some political issue abroad. And moving on, there's another video that I watched where it was understanding transnational repression in Central Asia tactics. In this video, they talk about that there is a broad toolkit for attacking people operationally and justifying it. And they don't invoke one principle, one idea, or one law to attack people. And I'm building on what I said previously. They use multiple principles, multiple ideas, and multiple loopholes in the law to attack persons such as myself that is experiencing transnational repression. So Nate Shakan acknowledges internet access is not always a problem. It's secure internet access that we seek to thwart the interception of the victim's communication. And I agree. I believe that there is a strong loophole in the law that allows states to intercept communications, such as the Police Service of Northern Ireland and NISOs and their proxies, to put specific persons through transnational repression. Even as I have stated, I believe that sometimes organizations or companies will turn a blind eye, such as Enzo. I am not alleging that they have actually participated in acts of transnational repression, but they do recruit IT specialists and people with cyber capacities, intelligence capacities for firms like NISOs. And I think that the very fact that they are sending that kind of talent to NISOs or even the Police Service of Northern Ireland, and these folks are engaging in this kind of activity to repress people like myself, is deeply troubling. There was another webinar that I liked, that I found interesting. This was a U.S. webinar. I think it was before the subcommittee, and it was Safeguarding Dissident Voices, Addressing Transnational Repression Threats to Homeland Security. And there was a speaker named Mr. Pfluger, and he specified that states can co-opt law enforcement. So states can have law enforcement carry out these political acts instead of protecting the victim. And in my case, I've contacted the Police Service of Northern Ireland multiple times. I've filed complaints with the Northern Ireland Ombudsman and received communication back. The Police Ombudsman and received communication back. And both were unresponsive and to some extent negligent as it relates to my claims of transnational repression. And my theory for that is that they are complicit and obviously are the perpetrators and are complicit with intelligence firms in carrying out this destructive activity. Now, Mr. Magaziner states that we must denounce and condemn all forms of transnational repression. This is an American stating that. So if that is true, and this committee was held in 2024, if that's true, then when persons are speaking out against transnational repression, either at home or abroad, there does need to be some denouncement to that, right? Even here in the United Kingdom, I think that the politicians here, I think that Keir Starmer should denounce transnational repression that is happening within Northern Ireland and hold Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, as well as the U.S., responsible for those actions. Now, there was a witness of transnational repression in one of the videos, and they said that people in the host country were contracted to harm them. And they were like, why are you going after me? What did I do to you? And that's the thing, is that sometimes this is to, I think, manipulate your understanding of what's going on, is that it can be people within your community, such as like an asylum community, that can attack you or harass you. And you're like, why are they doing this? Like, we're in the same community. We're going through the same thing. And the reason why they're doing that is because they've been contracted by an intelligence firm or an authority figure to put you through transnational repression. I've just seen like mendacious propaganda that has been put out into the ether about me, and then I've seen that removed after I complained about it. And this is not like a hard luck story. I'm not trying to get anyone to feel sympathy for me, but I want people to acknowledge that this is a growing concern. And I think here in Northern Ireland, they believe that, okay, well, if we let this happen to Kiana, it'll only happen to her. And we think that Kiana is a bad person, so it should happen to Kiana. And we think A, or we think B, or we think C, and they don't really look beneath the surface because they're going off of heuristics. They're making split-second decisions based on what they're told, based on what they see, and they're not digging deeper to try to understand the full story. And I think that that's really unfortunate. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to come on here and talk about those webinars that I've seen. I will link those webinars in the description